As a freight broker, you are always looking to find proper pricing for your shippers, also find efficient and compliant transportation of goods, primarily because of the fact that you have to look through all of the data that's available out there, use some different tools that are available out there to try to prevent as much fraud as you possibly can. Okay, so you have to go through looking for and spotting fraud through carriers and see which of the carriers are no good to use, which ones pose potentially a risk for either illegal activities or just are unsafe in terms of using them because of their fraud activities in that respect. Okay, so there are some red flags to look for, and you have to be vigilant about carriers and their authority status in first and foremost. So when you go to the Safer website, for example, if you're not using any tools at the moment, if you're a brand new broker, you have to look at whether or not they have an inactive or revoked authority status. Okay? And this can be a significant indicator of potential illegal activities when it comes to trucking companies and carriers. Okay? And as a part of your due diligence, it's essential that you regularly verify the authority status of your carriers. And you have to do this to ensure that compliance with regulations and that the carrier maintains the integrity of your operations as well, if by chance you do give them a shipment. Okay. In addition to this, not only are you going to look at inactive or revoked authorities, you have to look at also the newly issued authorities as well. So new carriers are good, you can use them, it's not a problem, but it's very difficult when there's no history on a carrier where they're super new without any kind of scale checks, without any kind of inspections, roadside inspections. Of course, God willingly, no collisions throughout their existence. But that kind of data, when it's not available, it makes it a little bit difficult to figure out whether or not you can even onboard this carrier to provide services for you. Okay, so when you look at new authorities, you want to look at the verification first of the authority. So before you even give that carrier any kind of loads, shipments, quotes, verify that its newly issued authority uh, is active in the FMCSA database on Safer, SAFER. And you can look at it to see if it is active in the active status on Safer. Okay. You also want to look at the financial responsibility of that carrier. You should assess the carrier's financial stability and compliance with regulatory requirements, okay? Especially with these new FMCSA regulations that have come into play that have actually put um, tighter sanctions on issuance on carriers and also tighter issuance on brokers as well, respectively. Also, looking at safety and compliance as well. Okay, so evaluate the carrier's safety rating, look at their insurance, make sure their insurance coverage is an all encompassing insurance coverage. Okay, so if there's spots in their coverage, that could be a big red flag for you. Okay, and looking at the overall compliance with the industry regulations and gauge it to see if these guys would be a potential fit for your company. Okay. And it's a good way to do risk mitigation. Okay. So if you're looking on Safer or FMCSA at the different safety scores, and a company has, 60% of their fleet out of service, okay, in terms of their trucks, that could be a problem for you. Okay. It could be a big deal with potentially maintenance issues, truck breakdowns, and the truck breakdowns will come because of the maintenance issues. And so when they get pulled over and scale, they get placed out of service often because their trucks aren't up to speed when it comes to maintenance. And it's probably a lot to do with preventative maintenance as well. In addition to that, if they have an out of service that's above 6.67%, which is the national average for drivers. So if their drivers get audited at by DOT officers or weigh scales or whatever the case may be. Okay. In that respect, if they have an out of service over 6%, you may want to confirm whether or not this is a legitimate carrier that you'd want to use. They could be doing some unethical business practices with their drivers, coercing drivers into driving, not having any hours of service remaining. It could be putting a single driver on a team load, and they end up, going down the strong solo Sergey route. So you got to make sure that you have that figured out as well. Okay, and then in addition to this, I did mention insurance, but instability in insurance is a big red flag. Okay. So if they keep switching insurance providers, or they can't hold it together with one policy, they're active, then inactive, then active, then inactive, revoked status, then non-revoked status, and new insurance and all that kind of stuff. If that's happening, that's a problem. Okay, that could be a huge red flag that something is not going right in that respect. Okay, and in addition to this, looking at name ownership shifts and changes. Okay, so if a carrier has name changing, ownership changing, and it happens every year or every couple months or every couple years, this could potentially be a well-known pattern for that indicates they're trying to kind of hide something, right? And so this could be another ethics question, whether or not you would want to work with such a carrier. So you really want to sit down and figure out what kind of carrier you're dealing with, okay? In addition to this, inconsistent information, okay? So if they're telling you, yeah, we have 56 trucks, and you go on the FMCSA safer database, and they only have one truck, it could potentially be some caution that you have to proceed with, okay? And identifying this inconsistent information between what the carrier is saying and what the FMCSA records are showing, it could be a definite task for you to do as a broker, but the due diligence that you put in will be what comes out on the other end, okay? The fruits of your labor, so to speak, okay? Another thing you want to look for in the FMCSA database, especially on the route of will or can this carrier potentially double broker a load without my consent? Okay, so double brokering is obviously a red flag, but double brokering is essentially when a carrier rebrokers a load that a broker gave to them to another carrier. And this could be a risk of non-payment. It could be a risk of non-communication. It could be a risk of safety and compliance. It could be an insurance risk. There's a lot of things that double brokering affects. And actually, annual losses to freight brokering are surmounting over $700 million. So you do have to be vigilant and proactive in identifying and reporting these instances of double brokering. Okay, and one cool thing that you can look for in the FMCSA database, not cool, but one thing you can look for that really signifies double brokering is if a carrier says they have 10 trucks and their MCS 150 mileage reporting for the previous time they reported it, whether it's this year or last year, okay, says that they only did around 100,000 miles and they have 10 trucks. That could definitely be a red flag as to this carrier potentially double brokering a load on you. Okay. Another thing is that if their operating status has both carrier and broker instead of just carrier, please proceed with caution. They could give that to their broker division or their broker desk and have the freight broker rebroker that freight, and they continue to tell you that this is going to go on their own assets. Okay? One way that they do this without you ever finding out or the shipper ever finding out is when that carrier is bringing on partner carriers, they will have that partner carrier go through the sign-on process, okay, insurance, everything that you would do as a broker, the whole 9 yards. But then in return, they send that carrier a magnet or magnets to give to all their trucks so that if they ever run a load for that carrier, okay, when that carrier brokers a load to them, whenever they run a load for that carrier, they will put the magnets of that carrier on the side of their truck as the partner carrier before they go into pickup. So the shipper will never know that this isn't, XYZ trucking. Okay, this looks and appears to be ABC trucking as originally confirmed. Okay, so these are some red flags that you can look for in that manner. Okay, in addition to this, if a carrier is trying to rush through verifications, okay, now I understand if they call you back in 30 minutes and they say, is this load still ours? Are we still good to go to hold our driver? That's another thing. But if every 3 minutes they're asking, are we good to go? Are we good to go? Can we go pick up? Can we go pick up? Can you send the load confirmation? That's a red flag for me. And it always has been and it always will be. Okay. And every time a carrier has done that, I've had poor performance from them on communication and on ethical reasons as well that were caught in transit. Okay. In addition to this, if there's outstanding fines, okay, so if there are unresolved penalties, this could indicate more crazy issues that are going on. And this could be underlying problems such as potentially financial instability, it could be regulatory non-compliance, or potentially operational risks as well. Okay, so you should look for transparency with carriers. Okay, what's the nature of the fines? What are the steps that are being taken to address these fines? And what is their overall commitment as a carrier to comply with the responsibility that they hold to take care of these fines? Okay. In addition to this, again, negative reviews can help you make a decision. Now, yes, some freight brokers don't do the right way of reporting issues. So they'll go on a place like Carrier 411 and they will put an unethical way or an unethical report about a carrier. Okay, that was not warranted. So for example, carrier was late for pickup 15 minutes. Or carrier was late for an hour to pick up. They never told us they were going to be late. Instead of going on Carrier 411 and reporting that kind of stuff, you as a broker should go to the carrier and try to resolve that. If you can't resolve it with the dispatcher or operations manager, go to the ownership group in the company. Again, these are all mom and shop. A lot of them are family-run businesses. Cousins and friends and that kind of stuff. So find out who the owner is and talk to the owner to resolve it so it doesn't happen again. I give the carrier the benefit of the doubt in this respect instead of going on Carrier 411 and putting a late report. Okay. However, if you go on there and you're reporting unethical business practices that actually took place, like literally took place, okay, even then with due caution, okay, if you're talking about double brokering, make sure you have solid evidence that it was double brokered. Okay, in this case, yes, these negative reviews help the industry sift through the noise and get rid of this BS. Okay, these bad carriers. Google reviews, you should go on that and see if the trucking company has a Google page and a Google review section to take a look at how well this carrier is performing, to see how they treat their drivers, how they treat their staff, and it could be an insight or a window into how they may treat you and your shipments. Okay? There's a company out of Toronto. They have hundreds of trucks, let's just put it that way. And the Google review page is horrendous. The way they treat their drivers, the way they treat their staff, non-payments to drivers, non-payments to staff. Then, every day, public commenting on how dangerous the driving is by the truckers, cutting people off, and things of that nature. Okay. And, high beams when it should be low beams, that kind of stuff, and I've experienced it with this specific trucking company I'm talking about. So if that kind of stuff happens and you have experienced it yourself or seen it yourself, it could be an insight as to, okay, if you were to broker them more freight or any freight, they would treat you in the same manner, okay? And it has a lot to do with a lot of lying. One lie turns into 10, turns into 30, turns into 100 different lies. And then it's a snowball effect, okay? It's a runaway chain reaction, it seems, okay? So looking at that could potentially help you with mitigating fraud, okay? And you will get better at it as you go along in the industry, okay? In your career as a freight broker, you will get better at looking for this stuff, okay? In addition to this, only provide the pickup number for a carrier after the driver's arrival and upon verification of the Department of Transportation MC number as well. Okay, DOT MC number verification. Okay, this is a good way or a good practice to do to avoid double brokering and to avoid issues. Ask a shipper also to confirm for you what's the name on the side of the truck, what's the truck number, and what's the trailer number. If it's supposed to be team drivers, ask for CDL, commercial driver's licenses. Okay, ask for the pictures to confirm that both of the drivers listed are in the cab. So that way you avoid strong solo surgeys and you avoid putting yourself in a service failure for your customers. Okay? It is a collaborative approach to sifting through this noise and getting rid of these horrendous unethical business practices by some carriers. Okay? If you take these routes that I've just talked about, you are going to save yourself a lot of headaches. You're going to save your you're going to save your freight brokerage a lot of headaches. Likewise, if carriers do their due diligence on brokers and make sure brokers are legitimate brokers, that they have a bond, that they're paying on time, all that kind of stuff, they do their whole 9 yards, then it is a manually verified, trusted network of providers that are collaboratively working together to move customer freight. But without this collaborative effort in this manner, you verify me, I verify you, we're good to go, let's move this load. Without this, it's very difficult to build a business the right way. Okay, it's very difficult to remain unscathed in this business. Okay, so please take these things into consideration when you go out as a freight broker trying to give your loads to carriers that you've never done business with, and regularly checking if that carrier that you are using is in regular compliance with the FMCSA. This will go a long way into making sure that your business is stable and that you continuously grow because your service is impeccable. Okay? So thank you very much for listening. Please give it a like, a comment, a share. Let me know of any other tips you can share with the community in the comments below. And give us a subscribe for more information moving forward on how to solidly run a trucking business and how to solidly run a freight brokerage and how to go about verification, ethical business practices. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is make the industry better one load at a time. Thank you very much.